Okay, so I just got a message from Robin that says, getting nothing. So this is round 2 of my interview with Robin Reid, who is a soul coach, energy healer, and medium. And unfortunately, my internet crashed and kicked us out at the prime place in the story where she was sharing. Okay, I see Robin. All right. And we're going to add as a guest. And it's inviting her. There she is. Awesome. Welcome back.
Hi, Bonnie.
I love technology, and technology loves me.
You're learning. I think we're all learning here.
Well, and what I learned last week that was very helpful for me is as we're up leveling energetically, oftentimes all of our technology gets fritzy. So this is just evidence that you and I are up leveling like crazy, dear.
That's great. This is good news.
Yes. So where we were at is you were sharing a story about the young woman you were working with who was having relationship issues, depression, work wasn't going well, and helping her to see that there were old beliefs that were really impacting her current life experience.
And that she had stories about her life that were not accurate, that she was still running and still acting as though they were true. So using a number of different techniques, and I worked with this woman over the phone. We never met face to face.
Wow.
We worked for about 6 months total, but she really started making big headway in about 3 months. I helped her see what the stories were, helped her be aware of her self-talk, help her be aware of what she authentically wanted, who she was authentically rather than who she thought she should be. And we really threaded our way through all of the flotsam and jetsam she had around her life that really was making her unhappy.
Wow.
She's now in a relationship. She left her job and took two part-time jobs and was exploring some things, exploring some consciousness classes, and is absolutely over the moon about how fun her life is and how good it feels. She feels very much on track.
So she's living her kick-ass life thanks to
She is living her
that you gave
she's
her.
living her kick
Awesome.
She's living her kick-ass life.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your kick-ass life. Once you were willing to own your gifts again and go through your own flotsam and jetsam, tell us about your kick-ass life.
I get to work from home. I have an office in my home and an office in Madison, which is about an hour away, nearest big city. And I get to spend a lot of the day with my husband. We have breakfast together. We plan our day out. We both go and do our work, and then we come back together at the end of the day. I love living like that.
Awesome.
I get to spend a lot of time outdoors because of about 60% of what I do is on the phone with my clients. I can be outside talking on my patio. I can be in my office. I can be in my car if I have to travel. I'm getting asked to speak to groups about the things that I do and how to develop your intuitional skills. Everybody has these skills. And most people, I need to interject this, most people think what they're getting as intuition is really their own thoughts. And they quite often say, oh, that's a silly idea. When what it really is an inspirational, intuitional nudge to go in a particular direction that person is not yet going.
Okay, so they tend to reject those thoughts then, and they're not really thoughts, they're downloads, basically.
Right.
And so they shove them off as, well, that's a crazy thought, but that's not really what it was. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Gotcha.
So helping people recognize those as distinct from their thoughts takes a little bit of practice, but everybody can do it.
How exciting is that? So, listeners, how exciting is that to you? The idea that you could also develop those skills and get to the point where you're really good at hearing the messages that, and I've heard it said, and I'm sure you have too, Robin, that oftentimes those who have walked on, ancestors, etc., are at the ready to help us out with stuff, but we just don't see that they're there. We don't recognize that their support is right there.
Those who have crossed over from our families especially are ready and available. Quite often I see grandparents spending time, grandparents who have passed on, energetically spending time with their grandchildren, helping their grandchildren, inspiring their grandchildren to go in certain directions and giving them energetic, loving support. When we cross over, we leave all of the negative stuff, all the difficult stuff behind. We only take our heart center and all the centers above with us. So it's love and above. Anything that was negative, anything hard, anything unfinished is all left behind in the earth plane. And so our relatives, our ancestors are coming from love and support exclusively once they've passed on.
I remember that from working with a young woman who had been pretty severely sexually abused by an uncle, and having, in the process of our work together, having an experience, he had passed away, of connecting with him from the other side. And he was this beautiful energy. And he basically said, I am so sorry for what I did to you on the earth plane, and helped her to discern what gifts were the result of that. Like, her ability to empathize with others' pain was phenomenal, and probably wouldn't have developed to that degree had she not undergone those very negative experiences. But that was a very healing experience for her.
Yes. Bonnie, quite often, what I've found, quite often what happens to us when we're young, really up until the time we're about 20 to maybe 27, all of those experiences are part of what get us ready to really do our work here on earth and to bring forth our gifts and to develop them as we grow into maturity. And people say, well, why did this happen to me when I was little? But if we let ourselves stay a victim of those experiences, we never allow ourselves to really learn the fullness of the lessons that are available and the beauty of the deeper understanding that can come to us.
That's a wonderful way to say it. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So
I really hope,
I think a way to look at it is you can either be a victim of those experiences or you can be a victor.
You can be a victor. That's beautiful,
yep,
Bonnie. And the truth is that as we mature, our maturity depends on how much we're willing to take responsibility for our own experience of our life. What happens to us, and quite often we don't have a lot of control. But how we tell stories about that to ourselves and the understanding that we glean from that really shows us whether we're maturing or whether we're staying immature and still in victimhood and keep going around and around in the same circle of depression, anxiety, insecurity, and fear, which keep us small.
And at the risk of stirring a pretty major pot here, that's one of the reasons that I left the field of psychotherapy, because it became that, I'm going to use a strong word here, cesspool of labels. So someone would walk in the door and say, I'm bipolar, I'm borderline, I'm this, I'm that, I'm something else. And all of these labels masked who this person really, truly was.
Yeah.
And that I found very sad, very sad. So for
and
you,
hard to
go ahead.
And hard to work with, because if someone is not willing to give that label up, they can't move forward.
No.
You have to be willing to give the label up.
Right.
The label is a tool to stay hiding.
Right.
And a tool.
There's fear there. There's fear there.
Yeah.
Who will I be if I let go of my labels? It's miserable, but there's a comfort in those labels.
It's been scientifically proven that as we think negative thoughts, we literally wear a chemical groove, so to speak, in our chemistry of our body. And it's easier to think those negative thoughts than to install new stories about ourselves that are also true. And then think those thoughts, those more positive thoughts.
Right.
And yet that's exactly what it takes. We cannot get rid of the old thoughts. All we can really do is supplant them with new positive stories that actually are true and actually work for us.
Yes.
And that is the work. We can't just take a pill and have that depression go away forever and ever.
Right.
We have to do the emotional work.
Yes. And the way that I talk about the pills it's basically taking the battery out of the wailing smoke alarm. That smoke alarm is wailing for a reason. We need to listen to it. And not that pills can't be useful in a short-term way if someone's right at the edge and needs to be helped to back away. But you don't leave someone on meds for 30, 40, 50 years when it's not addressing what the core issue is there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, when you're just starting the work, it's all tools on board.
Right.
Everything that can be helpful, from medications to meditation to exercise to physical therapy, anything that really helps somebody start to get their feet on the ground so that they can do the emotional work,
right,
to change their energy structure, to change the flow of energy in and around their bodies so that they can feel healthy again.
Right. Well, and one of the things that I really was excited about a while ago was because one of the things that I think American medicine does really not a good job of is titrating people off of anti-anxiety meds, antidepressants, etc. So when someone, I mean, I can't tell you the number of people I've treated where their doc just takes the bottle away and says, here, take this instead. No, 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 no. And how to very, very slowly with mindfulness move off, and it can take up to a year to titrate someone successfully off of a med. I'm an example of that. And I was very excited about wanting to put that information out there. And I have a relative who is a pharmacist, and I was hoping that she would work with me on that. And she said, you know, I can't risk it. I can't risk my license to do this. And I thought, how sad is it that this system is so out of balance that that's the case? Very sad.
I agree, Bonnie.
Yeah.
People have to take responsibility and take this on themselves. There's so much support these days. There's nutritional support, there's emotional support, there's physical support to help change how you live so that you can really live your best and most wonderful life, because everybody deserves to have their best wonderful life for the rest of their life.
Amen. Amen. And so what I'm going to say to everybody who's listening is, don't hear us saying take your pills and throw them away. That's not what we're saying.
No.
We're saying you have to be mindful, planful, working with someone who really understands the biochemistry of those medications to very slowly and safely help you wean off. And there are ways to do that. And most physicians are not good at it. They're just not. So,
but there are some who are. There are docs who are.
Yes,
and there are alternative docs who are, and more of those alternative docs. Western medicine definitely has is very, very important in the healing process, and having someone who knows how to use every technique at our disposal and then help you wean off that as you get stronger and stronger,
right,
and are able to really take responsibility for your life is so important. Agreed. To have that in your support group.
Agreed. And to have a wide support group. So not just your doc, but your nutritionist, your psychic, your coach, having a team that supports you as you're walking this new, far less traveled path. So for you, Robin, when you were walking that far less traveled path for yourself, what were some of the barriers or resistances that you ran into?
The primary resistance was my own fear, and my own fear of being rejected, my own fear of being seen as wacko, somebody who wasn't to be paid attention to because they were so far out there. I was fortunate in that my husband is an atheist, agnostic, and he listened to me without judgment on either side. I was very, very fortunate to have his support, even though he didn't always understand what I was doing or understand what I believed. He didn't have any resistance to what I was doing, so I was very, very fortunate. I also had to really come to terms with the fact that my family still doesn't believe me. Still makes fun of me. My siblings make fun of me from time to time. And I learned to not have that in the way of my relationship with them. And I don't try, and I rarely talk about what I do with them. I make everything else more important than what I do. And unless they ask me questions, I don't bring it up.
Well, and I think that's, you know, because what you're doing is kind of, to put a term to it, a creative baby. And we wouldn't turn our creative baby over to those who aren't going to care about it, nurture it, support it, etc.
That's a good way to talk about it, Bonnie. And I know that there are people around whom I can't talk about what I do because it is so threatening to them and their own religious affiliations and their religious understanding that they can't even enter a dialogue. So I no longer hide. I no longer pretend that I'm not that, but I really don't make that all of who I am.
Right.
And I have a rich and wonderful community that I'm involved in, and a very broad community that I'm involved in too. So just like when I used to be in the furniture industry, which at the time, and even still now, was run by white men in New York. And I never let the fact that it was a male-dominated industry stop me from anything. And neither do I let the fact that what I do now is not necessarily understood by many people, and there are people who are afraid of these kinds of subjects. I don't let that stop me at all in any way.
Wonderful.
And I go forward with what I do and make myself available to the world. And when someone asks me what I do, I say I'm a soul coach, I'm an energy healer, and a medium. And I help people connect back to themselves so that they can have a kick-ass life.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, Robin, if you were going to give our audience a takeaway, something that you would want them to remember from our conversation today, what would it be?
It's that we all individually have so much more at our disposal and to help us than we think we do. We all have a higher vibrational level that not many people understand. Spirit is always supporting us, and that everybody deserves to have the opportunity to feel good, love their life, and feel connected to who they are and everything else in the universe.
That's an awesome way to say it. So if someone wanted to connect with you, to work with you, how would they go about getting a hold of you?
I have a website. I have several Facebook pages, and my professional business name is Robin Ann Reid, R-E-I-D. You can find me at robinannreid.com. You can also find me at Robin Ann Reid business page. I think you have my my personal name, my name with my maiden name, Robin Damel Reid. That's my private page, and everything is public, so people can easily find me.
Wonderful.
And it's interesting. Many people are so concerned about having a really high-powered business page, and I still have been sort of running under the radar. I have a few pages. It doesn't say an awful lot, but my phone number is all over the place. You can call me. We can have a discussion to see if you have any questions about what I do, or if I'm somebody that you want to work with.
Wonderful. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And once I end the interview and the post shows up, feel free to go in the feed, Robin, and add in your contact information so that people can just click and get to you. Oh, it looks like she froze again, but she'll be back, I'm sure. So, yeah, there we go. So I'm not sure how much of that you heard, so I'm going to repeat it. When I end the interview, if you want to go in the feed, Robin, and just put in your contact information so people can just click and get to you, that would be awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing
Bonnie,
this.
thank you. Thank you for this invitation. This has been so much fun today.
Awesome. Good, good,
Blessing.
good. All right. So I want to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you for joining us for Living Your Kick-Ass Life. I'm Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum, America's Kick-Ass Coach and Psychologist. And remember, we are all capable of far more than we think we are. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.